you all so much for being here.
Good afternoon, everyone. It would be great to know who's with us today. If you wouldn't mind taking a moment to post your name and the name of your company or where the location you're joining us from in the chat, that would be great. Or in the comments. We'd love to know who's with us today.
We know that you guys have been talking. In the chat, we've been seeing some people come through. Hello to Miss Tammy. I saw her name pop up. Hello to Travis. I saw his name pop up. Hi, Lily, tuning in from Punta Cana. I love that. I love that. We have people from all over. Hi, Liz. Hi, Jana. I hope I'm saying your name right. Alyssa Stevens from Long Island. Hello. Nadine, Dr. Nadine. Coming in from Atlanta. Krishan Wright. Hi. Of Blacksit Global. Awesome. We love your platform. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. I saw some things being hi Anthony. How are you? We saw some things being posted before where Nadine was asking who remembers Blackout Tuesday 2 years ago. And Miss Stephanie, before we completely start, I want to ask you what you remember from that day and the aftermath of it. Where were you? What was your reaction? How did you feel when you saw, certain brands, putting it up there? What was going through your head?
Well, I think during that time, my head was really down, just getting Blacks in Travel and Tourism off the ground and preparing for some upcoming webinars. So I was spending quite a bit of time on Instagram. And then, I started seeing these Black boxes. And I'm like, okay, this is interesting. At first, I didn't really know what to expect because sometimes, especially when there's an issue or a situation like the death of a Black man, like George Floyd, the Black Lives Matter movement that ignited, sometimes you stand back and you question, is this reactive?
Mm-hmm.
Are people simply reacting because they feel like they need to do something? Or are people just genuinely feeling compelled to show that they are united in the cause against social and racial injustices? So I had some mixed emotions.
Yeah.
But then shortly thereafter, here comes the Black Travel Alliance pulling folks up and pulling folks over.
Pulling folks up. That is right.
Folks over. So,
Mm-hmm.
and from that point, the work that you all have been able to accomplish to really ignite change around diversity, equity, and inclusion just has been phenomenal. So I really commend you and all of the code founders for stepping in to help fill the gap, because it's a huge gap that needs to be filled. In no one organization, no one person can fill it by themselves. And so that's why I'm really excited that we're here together today, and really excited to have this conversation, to talk about the state of travel, to really talk about the work that both of our organizations have been engaged in over the past 2 years. We know that we're just really getting started. There's so much work. And I know between you and I, when we're talking, you're exhausted, I'm exhausted, you're traveling.
Literally. We're always somewhere.
But we're leaning into this opportunity to make change, sustainable change happen in our industry. And if we don't make certain that the conversation continues and that actions, intentional actions, take place within this industry, then all of those Black squares from 2 years ago and all of the efforts and the work that your organization, my organization, and a lot of our allies that are with us today will be in vain. And we've worked too hard and come too far for that to be the case. So I'm excited about this conversation today.
Absolutely. And I echo your excitement. We wanted to make sure people saw how important it was to see both of our organizations together on this stage, for the simple fact that people oftentimes think that we're competing, and we're like, we're not. We actually do two very different things. But even if we did the same thing, this is not a competition. And like it says in our title, Black Travel Alliance, that alliance is for other organizations within the space and us to come together because we all are trying to achieve the same goal. So I just want to thank you for always being so open. Thank you for always asking us what we need and how we can collaborate so that we can move forward and help this industry move forward. And I want to stress again how important that moment is for us right now. So yes, thank you guys so much for signing on today. We're actually going to go ahead and get started. Please drop, all of the, sorry about that. That's my parents' old phone. Give me 1 second.
Marty, are you with us? Oh, okay.
I am. I'm there. I just had to wait for it so I can now go unplug this phone. It's like, who has house phones anymore? But apparently my parents. So I apologize for that, you guys. I am going to go ahead and start the actual presentation. Miss Stephanie, I will ask that you go ahead and start taking it away from the beginning. If you guys have any questions or comments or concerns, please let us know in the chat. We can see it. You can leave it under the question and answer tab like Dr. Nadine is saying, and we will just get right into it.
Well, and before that, I also want to acknowledge that this is an intergenerational collaboration. And you probably noted that as you hear Marty calling me Miss Stephanie. And that's okay. I'm happy to be here, with this young lady. And there's so much I can learn from her, and we can learn from each other. So I'll let you roll with the Miss Stephanie.
I try, you guys. I told her that I would try my hardest to not call her Miss Stephanie, but it's just a sign of respect for somebody who is just a little bit older than I am, just a tad bit, but also because I just respect you as a person. So yeah, but we'll take it right away.
All right. Well, welcome everyone. Again, it's such a pleasure to be here with you all. It's been a while since we've done a webinar, and I'm so glad that we're able to join forces with Marty and the Black Travel Alliance for so many reasons. And I think later we'll talk more about not only this collaboration, but future collaborations with us, between us and other Black travel groups and organizations. But excited to be here today, just really talking about various perspectives and observations, and also some solutions about the state of travel, and especially as it relates to Blacks in travel and tourism. So I'll go ahead and get started. Next slide, please, Marty. Well, here's our agenda for today. I'm going to get started and just give you a brief overview again of BTT and some of the work we've done over the past 2 years, but also dive a little deeper into some industry issues that are very relevant to the state of the industry today, and where we're going and moving forward as an industry. And then Marty's going to take it over and talk about the wonderful work that the Black Travel Alliance is doing. And then we're going to talk about solutions and suggestions, because we're not just here, to talk about what's not right and what's not happening in our industry. I think we both of our organizations have proven over the past 2 years that we are solutions driven organizations. We're not just talking about what needs to be done in the industry. We're actually creating programs and initiatives to make change, sustainable change happen in our industry. So we welcome you all to join the conversation when we get to that part. And then we'll also have time for Q&A. Next slide, please. All right, so I'm going to start by talking about some observations and perspectives that I have in the various roles and capacities that I serve in the industry. I serve on several national and global boards, and also a member of the U.S. Travel and Tourism Advisory Board. And so I want to talk about some things from the business side of the industry that are impacting all of us. Next slide, please. But before I start that conversation, I think most of you who are with us, and for those of you who are new to BTT, I just want to share a little bit about what we do and why we do it, because we are driven by our why, right, Kelly? Kelly's on our team. Our why is what matters to us. Our why is working to advance Blacks in travel and tourism and collaborative. Our why is about leveling the playing field so that small Black businesses, suppliers can actively participate and profit in their local tourism ecosystems. Our why is about increasing equitable opportunities for small businesses to participate and profit, and also providing them with tourism and market readiness so that they are prepared to make money in the industry. Then our why is about amplifying these businesses and helping to strategically position them nationally and globally to attract opportunities, not only working with BTT, but vetting them and helping them to become tourism ready so that they can access and partner with other industry opportunities. You see our website is blacksintourism.org. Feel free to visit to learn more about our work. But let's go to the next slide. Some of our initiatives that we have rolled out over the past 2 years, and again, I always go back to our why, because we don't just do anything because we think it needs to be done. Every program and initiative that BTT has introduced to the marketplace over the past 2 years was derived based on numerous conversations that we've had with various stakeholders in the industry, from DMOs to travel brands to travel media to small businesses to trade associations and so on. And so we are very mindful, of how we introduce initiatives and the types of initiatives that we create to become resources for the industry, for the various stakeholders. And some of the programs and initiatives that we have rolled out include our Diversity Tourism Academy, where we've had many DMOs and other travel brands enroll their employees to take our DEI Deep Dive Masterclass. Also, through the Diversity Tourism Academy, we offer our Tourism Business Enhancement and Readiness Masterclass, which is for small suppliers, tour operators, restaurant owners, B&B owners, transportation providers, retail owners, and cultural attractions. So through the DTA, we're helping them really understand how the global travel and tourism industry works, because that's one of the key reasons why a lot of Black businesses have not really been able to grow and sustain, in this industry, because we really only have a very narrow local focus of the industry. When, although we're based locally, we have the capacity to do business globally and to become positioned as a attraction within our destinations. And we know a lot of businesses just don't understand how to make that happen because they're disconnected from the industry. They're not connected to their local DMOs. They don't participate regularly in industry events. And why? Because we know our industry is very much a pay-to-play industry. And if you don't have the financial resources to be in rooms and at tables, then you're simply not going to be able to grow your business. I'm really excited that this year we will be participating in IPW and taking 6 of our Black supplier partners to IPW for the first time. We've been working very closely with one of our industry allies, U.S. Travel Association, to be able to create access so that there is broader representation and diversity at this key industry event where deals are made. So we're excited that we're bringing that representation, and every year it is our goal to increase the number of Black suppliers that are able to participate in this business so that they can meet with international buyers and press to sell and market their products and to be able to grow and scale their business. We have the Black Tourism Talent Directory, which again was birthed from the concept that the industry could not find Black talent for jobs and opportunities, because we know, again, since the Black Lives Matter movement, the industry has been leaning into hiring more people of color, Black people, but not really knowing, where to find them. And so we created the Black Tourism Talent as an online matchmaking tool for the industry to be able to match with Black talent, whether it's professionals or suppliers or students that are seeking speaker opportunities, employment opportunities, contracting, and media opportunities. And then I'm really excited about the Black Cultural Heritage Tours collection. Now, this initiative started last summer when we launched the U.S. Black Cultural Heritage Road Trip, and our team was driving throughout the Southeast region of the country, going into destinations, into those off the beaten path parts of destinations to find those small Black businesses. Because one, we wanted to see how they were faring during the pandemic. And we wanted to see who was still in business and who needed assistance rebounding and resuming business. But we were also looking to determine, the level of tourism readiness for some of these businesses so that we could identify partners to work with us on our multi-day Black Cultural Heritage Tour itineraries. And so I'm really excited that we now have, I think it's over 40 businesses that are now part of several of
Yes.
our Southeast region itineraries. And we are now working with more of them to help them become tourism and market ready so that they can be partners, because these itineraries are designed to drive consistent tourist revenue and dollars into these businesses and underrepresented communities, so that, again, these businesses can become sustainable and scalable. And then Culture 365, we also do consulting work for various DMOs in various capacities. But one of the initiatives we launched last year, working with a DMO, is called Culture 365 Live. And it's an activation. It's an online activation, but also an in-person activation that really amplifies Black businesses and cultural heritage in destinations. And these businesses and highlight and amplify cultural heritage assets to travelers, so that they know that there is culture 365 days a year located in destinations. And so we also have the Cultural Heritage Education Summit and Multicultural Marketplace that we're going to be presenting next year in 2023 in partnership with Tourism Cares and the Travel Foundation. Really excited about this program because it's really going to talk about how community, culture, and climate intersect in our industry. So it's going to be a phenomenal event, and we'll be sharing more information. Next slide, please.
This is fantastic.
Thank you. So BTT has been on a perpetual pursuit of progress for the past 2 years. And I think every one of us, who have really been intentional about bringing forth diversity, equity, and inclusion, whether it's in your small business, whether it's in your destination, in your corporation, we're all on this perpetual pursuit of progress. And what that looks like is, creating recognizable and real results, not just talking about it, but, being able to show, your track record of, making impact, around diversity and inclusion, whether it's within your organization or externally, within your destination. Being, again, intentional about making impact, because, again, it's not enough to just talk about DEI. I'm so over talking about DEI, Marty. If I talk about DEI, then I'm talking about case studies and best practices that have been happening or occurring over the past 2 years. Organizations and companies that have really been intentional about making impact, whether it's in diversity hiring, whether it's in contracting, whether it's just in, creating equitable opportunities for people of color or Black people, whether it's within your organization or in your destination, just to be able to actively participate. And then creating those sustainable solutions, because that's what's going to be required. If we're talking about DEI for this industry, it's going to be require sustainable solutions to make certain that DEI becomes interwoven into the industry's fabric. It's not an afterthought. It's not a box you check. It's not a separate column. And in order for anything to be sustainable, it requires money. So when we're talking about sustainable solutions, that means that there is a line item in your budget for DEI or
Might
whatever.
wanna say that part again. You might wanna say it takes money again. Make no mistake.
Absolutely. And we can't talk about sustaining DEI if we're not putting money behind it. And then, of course, no one organization or company can really make sustainable change happen in this industry. And it requires purpose driven partnerships. And I'm excited about the various partnerships that we have engaged in over the past 2 years. Um, I'll call out some of them, like I said, with US Travel, with North Star, with ATTA, and so many other organizations that we have been able to work collaboratively with to really try to move the needle forward in the area of DEI and really to level the playing field so that, again, underrepresented businesses and communities can actively participate and profit in our industry. Next slide, please. So I want to share and talk a little bit about some observations and perspectives again, and this is all based on my role and the seats at tables that I have in the industry and from meetings that I participate in. So let's start talking a little bit about travel and tourism recovery, and I've broken this down by federal, state, and local. So because I serve on the U.S. Travel Tourism Advisory Board through the U.S. Department of Commerce, I'm really excited to be serving in that capacity during this time, during the Biden-Harris administration, because they both have really made a commitment to DEI. And not only have they made commitments, they have charged every federal agency with making decisions through a DEI lens so that underrepresented communities, Black businesses are no longer left behind or not included. And there are several different initiatives that they have launched throughout all agencies to make certain that they're creating a level playing field for Blacks in America. But even more specifically for Blacks in travel and tourism through the US Department of Commerce, there are some initiatives, through the EDA, the Economic Development Administration, that has several grant funding opportunities through the American Recovery, through ARPA. And specifically, there is a grant for travel and tourism and outdoor recreation that went to market last year. I did make the case and really, try to make certain that the funding, federal funding, because federal funding is so hard and has been difficult for Black businesses and organizations to access. And while I commend, the administration wanting to do more, to make these funds available, we still have a lot of work to do. We still have a lot of work to do. And I know specifically for the EDA grant, the Travel, Tourism, and Outdoor Recreation Grant, these funds are supposed to be directed at equity-driven initiatives, which is great. It's great to have the language written into these grants, but I'm still waiting to see the number of Black-led nonprofits or organizations that represent or serve Blacks in travel and tourism. How many of them are recipients of the $240 million that were allocated for competitive grants? I've requested that list. They say it won't be available until September, but I'm looking and I'm watching, because again, it's not enough to say that the funding or the priority for the funding is equity if those dollars really aren't being equitably dispersed amongst various ethnic groups. Increasing funding for Brand USA happened, which I'm really happy that they were able to receive an additional $50 million, toward recovery. But I have some thoughts about that too that I'm going to, when I talk about solutions. But so a lot of things are happening on a federal level for travel and tourism. A lot of priorities are being given attention. And I'm really excited about the direction that the administration is moving, for travel and tourism, and also, trying to be intentional to make certain that there are equitable opportunities for all to be able to prosper in this industry. And on a statewide level, through the EDA grant, we know that several state tourism offices have received federal funding again to support recovery, and they also share those dollars with their local DMOs as well for recovery and for marketing. But these dollars also create unique opportunities to enhance economic development opportunities for Blacks within these states. And again, I don't know exactly what a lot of the state tourism offices are doing, but if you represent a state tourism office, I really hope that you are really embracing and being intentional about reaching out to Black chambers of commerce, Black business and professional organizations that represent a collaboration of Black businesses to talk about how they can become better positioned in the state's economic development efforts. And with that should come funding from the state, because oftentimes it's great to bring people to the table, to say we now want to help and support you. But again, what did I say? Sustainability requires financial investment, and especially for most Black businesses, because more Black businesses were hurt and impacted and went under during the pandemic. And most Black businesses in travel and tourism were not actively participating and profiting in the industry prior to the pandemic. So there's a lot of work, but there's a lot of opportunities for state tourism offices to really leverage the dollars that they're receiving from the federal government to make certain that more businesses within their destinations are equipped and prepared to recover and to resume business on a much broader and impactful level. And then locally, again, we know many of our DMOs are recovering, and their focus has really been on, rebooting and introducing those new marketing strategies so that they can get folks coming back to the destinations. Now, my challenge with some DMOs, and I'm not going to call them out, but I am still seeing some DMOs are just not, okay, let me say it this way. They say that they're addressing diversity, equity, and inclusion because they are marketing to Black travelers to come to the destination, which is wonderful because that's a huge step for a lot of DMOs and state tourism offices who we know have generally not really shown that representation in their marketing collateral. But we see that they're starting to do that. But there's a whole nother part of the industry that's still being excluded from the economic and tourism development, and that's our Black businesses. Because it's great that you want to market to bring Black travelers or diverse travelers to the destination, but when they get there, they're trying to see, well, where the Black businesses are, where are the Black communities, where can I go, for the best soul food, Caribbean food, listen to some jazz, whatever. And it's truly a missed opportunity and a disconnect when DMOs and state tourism offices are neglecting the Black businesses and not making certain that they are tourism and market ready. Because again, when we're talking about DEI, that should mean broader inclusion, beyond the partners that you have been working with that really don't represent a broad range of representation. And in order to get a broader range of representation, that means that state tourism offices and DMOs are going to have to leave their cozy offices and go into diverse communities to meet businesses so that you can start to build this connection, and so that businesses know that there are opportunities to grow with you. Okay. And again, we recognize that not everyone wants to do that, or they have a person to do that. And that's why we do what we do. We go into these communities. So we already know who the Black businesses are. And when we did the road trip last year, when we partnered with several DMOs, as we were going into those destinations, our team had already researched the Black businesses. So we were able to make introductions to DMOs and businesses that they didn't even know. So it's not always you have to do it yourself, but through those purpose-driven partnerships, we can create those opportunities to engage more of your local stakeholders in your marketing efforts, in your tourism efforts, so that when people are coming to the destination, they have a much broader range of diverse activities and experiences to have, which ultimately creates economic benefit to those underserved businesses in underrepresented communities. Next slide, please. So our solutions, and I've talked a little bit about some of these. How am I doing on time, Marty?
I'm gonna just let you rock out. Because what you're saying is important, so I can't cut that off.
Well, so I'm going to be mindful of the time.
No
but
worries.
Again, I want to talk about solutions because, again, I'm not one to just talk about the problem. And but here on a federal level, so DEI is a commitment of the Biden administration. So we need to make certain that there is an Office for Black Affairs created within one of the federal agencies. Now, I have nothing. I love my Native American brothers and sisters, but they have 3 to 5 different organizations, agencies specifically geared to economic development and capacity building for Native Americans. So I'm just going to say this, and perhaps it's because the federal government feels guilty for taking their land. I get that. But the federal government needs to know too that the Black folks that were brought from Africa here had to build on that land without any compensation. And the point I'm trying to make is that they're not the only marginalized community in this country that needs that additional support and assistance from the federal government. So at least create an Office for Black Affairs so that all of these initiatives that the Biden administration has created, they live someplace, not just on the website, but they live within a federal agency where there's federal funding to support sustaining an Office for Black Affairs. The EDA grant that I talked about, it must level the playing field for all marginalized businesses to apply and access federal funding. Again, favoritism or, one marginalized community should not be able to access or apply for funding if the other one is not able to. And there's an experience, that I have, but I won't really go into details. But when we're talking about leveling the playing field, it has to be across the board. It cannot be, for one marginalized community that has broader access to funding and the other one doesn't. Brand USA, the additional funding that they got, which is so important and very much needed. But it also should include marketing strategies to promote Black-owned businesses, cultural attractions, and diverse tour products and experiences. Now, I know Brand USA is doing research now because I guess they need research to let them know whether or not people really want to have these types of experiences, whether or not they really care about cultural heritage. But we know that they do, and there has been research done before. But the bottom line is, just like they have marketed in every other story, every other cultural attraction, basically when they go into other parts of the world and they tell people this is what we have to offer, so people buy into it and say, okay, when I come to the US, I want to have that experience. Well, if we start telling people around the world that there are these diverse cultural experiences and products that are part of the American story, and just as important, then people will want to have those experiences. But first, they need to be made aware that these types of experiences exist, experiences that tell a broader narrative about the Black experience in the US, inclusive of the civil rights movement, but beyond that, because there's more than 400 years of Black history in our country. But the industry has only really ever focused on the civil rights movement and the civil rights trail, which is, why the itineraries that we have created cover so much more, tell so many untold stories, uncover so many hidden cultural gems that people just don't know about. For the state level, again, the ARPA funding for marketing and recovery must include technical assistance and training for more stakeholders to actively participate and profit in their statewide tourism ecosystem. And it must provide access to funding to support recovery for small businesses, because no one's thinking about the small businesses. We know the DMOs need to market. We know the state tourism offices need to market. But who's helping our small businesses recover to resume business? Also, from economic development, it should be aligned with community development and tourism development for a cohesive strategy that includes and benefits all stakeholders, because you have the economic development office, the community development office, the tourism development office, all doing their own thing, and no one's talking. But it requires coming together, collaborating, and creating a cohesive strategy to leverage the dollars that they have, because, again, oftentimes people say that they don't address certain things on a local level because they don't have it in their budget. But in this case, working with your economic development office, whether it's on a local or statewide level, brings more resources to the table for the DMO, to be able to do work around tourism development and destination development, and helping to prepare your small businesses to participate in your tourism ecosystem. And then on a local level, for recovering marketing strategy, it must be inclusive of multicultural businesses and amplify diverse tourism products and experiences. And now that a lot of DMOs are staffing up, and rehiring, they should make certain that their teams reflect the diversity from the top to the bottom, not just on the bottom, but you got to reflect diversity from the top to the bottom. Next slide, please. And I'm going to speed up a little bit. And so workforce development, we know, everybody knows that this has been a pain point, not only for the travel and tourism industry, but for industries throughout the country. And again, as a member on TTAB, the U.S. Travel and Tourism Advisory Board, it's also a priority for the U.S. federal government. How are we addressing the labor shortage that everyone is currently experiences? But more specifically to travel and tourism, some of the drivers that are impacting the labor shortage is career advancement. The prospect for career advancement is a factor that's impacting an employee's decision whether or not to join the travel and tourism workforce. Changing job preferences. Those currently and previously employed in travel and tourism are evaluating their interest in other employment opportunities, because why? When the pandemic hit, who were the first to be laid off and fired? The service workers. Industry perception and equitable opportunities for minorities. The perception of the travel and tourism industry as an equitable employer for prospective Black professionals is not high. And why is that? Think about it. When we see advertisements related to travel and tourism, we typically see the person at the front desk, or we see the person that's carrying the bags, or we see the concierge, or the person that's waiting on someone. And I'm not saying nothing's wrong with those positions, but now that the industry wants to hire Black talent in management and C-suite positions, they can't find them. And why? I'm an MBA. So would I want to work for an industry that really only has shown me that the opportunities available for people that look like me are in the lower paying service positions. No, I wouldn't. But this is the messaging and the imagery that the industry has portrayed for years, So the industry now has to do a lot of PR, but even more so than that, they're going to need to partner with some of these organizations to introduce the variety of career opportunities, not just service positions, but variety of career opportunities that the industry has to offer in order to attract talent. Next slide, please. So some of the solutions, again, offer higher competitive salaries and benefits, flexible work environment, and advancement opportunities. Educate college students on the broader range of employment opportunities as a pathway into the industry, inclusive of entrepreneurship, because a lot of university, hospitality, and tourism programs don't really introduce entrepreneurship as a pathway into the industry. And we really need them to do so because we need more Black-owned travel and tourism businesses. We need more Sheila Johnsons in this industry. Create strategic partnerships with national Black professional and business organizations to tap membership for C-suite and management positions. And launch industry-wide marketing campaigns that reflect diversity in all levels of professions, not only service positions. Next slide, please. Observations and perspectives around diverse tourism products and experiences. Now, I'm really excited about this because diverse tourism products and experiences has now become a priority for the U.S. federal government. And if you're going to be at IPW, come hear me talk about it next Wednesday at 9:30 in Orlando. But I'm excited because, again, I'm talking about what does it mean when the U.S. federal government makes diverse tourism products and experiences a priority. Well, anything that the federal government makes a priority or, looking for recommendations, there's no guarantee that there's going to be federal funding to support it, but at least we're moving in that direction. And the government is saying, how can we support more diverse tourism products and experiences in the country? Because again, I think the Biden administration is really looking at every area where there have been disparities, in this industry, and recognizing that because our country is so diverse and rich in various cultures and heritage, we haven't done an adequate job of really showing this level of diversity to people around the world. And so the narrative that most people have from around the world have about Black folks and even other cultures are based on what they see on television. Okay, so I think it's really important to DMOs, to the buyers that are going to be at IPW next week, tourism boards, to recognize that if the U.S. government is making this a priority, then you should too. Because again, moving forward, it could be, federal funding to support creating more diverse tourism products and experiences. But I am excited because, this is an opportunity for those small Black and brown tour operators that provide these diverse tourism products and experiences to hopefully be able to access federal support to enhance existing products, but to build and create new products. And so I say to any DMO that's represented here, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to do this work because there are people already in your destination that have been doing these products, offering these products. So now is the opportunity to collaborate and partner so that you can leverage your seat at the table to help bring them to tables in rooms to be able to access funding to scale the work that they're doing, that, to be able to deliver more of these types of products and experiences to people who are coming to your destination, because ultimately it creates a win-win, because people who are coming into the US seeking these local, authentic cultural heritage experiences will be looking to your destination to see if they exist. On a state level, again, I mentioned economic development for underrepresented businesses and communities has to be a priority. It's not enough to say that we want more DEI if we're not intentional about creating those equitable opportunities for small businesses that have really never been at the table and actively participate to be invited to the table to participate. And what that means, it doesn't mean that they're going to come ready to participate all the time. Because when you've never been invited into a room or a table, then you don't really even know what's happening. What's the conversation? Why does it matter to me? So we have to help them understand how the industry works and how it can help them grow their business, and how what they have to offer is important to the ecosystem within your destination, that they play a vital role in delivering a vital experience or activity, that people who are looking for something new and different to experience, they can have access to that. But you got to make certain that you invest the time and the dollars to help them become tourism and market ready. And if you don't know how, we can help you do that. And again, on a local level, this is an opportunity, I already said, for DMOs to really start to connect and engage with their local stakeholders. If you don't have a Black person on your staff that's responsible for doing that, or if you don't have a multicultural tourism development division within your DMO, you probably may feel a little intimidated going into communities that you don't traditionally go into. But again, that's why you can partner with a BTT. And we can tap into the existing businesses that we already have partners with, but then come in and help you identify those partners, and then also help you assess their level of tourism readiness, so you know who's ready to start engaging with you, but who may need some technical assistance and support to get ready to participate with you. And at the end of the day, these new diverse tourism products and experiences, again, will attract cultural travelers that are seeking these local authentic experiences. I think that's my last slide, Marty. Oh, no, it's not. But anyway, I basically just said this is the solutions, but basically what I just said is summarized in this slide. So next slide. Observations, I thought it was my last slide. This is my last slide. Observations, perspectives about the future of travel. Over the past 2 years, we have heard in many forums, at events, these 3 topics being addressed: cultural heritage, community-based tourism, climate change. The industry is really starting to lean into these topics because they are helping to define the future of travel. Because in order for travel to be a force for good, it must be inclusive, diverse, and offer those equitable opportunities for all stakeholders to participate and profit. And travelers who are intentionally seeking out these immersive cultural heritage experiences, they're looking to connect with local people in local places. And community-based tourism considers how locals and communities are impacted by tourism and how the industry can help visitors travel responsibly. Meaning, now when people are traveling, yes, they want to have a great time, but they want to see, how can I deposit something back into the communities that I'm visiting in? Whether it's volunteering, whether it's patronizing underrepresented businesses, doing business with shopping with Black businesses. People are intentional about wanting to travel more responsibly. And then climate action must become a priority for the entire industry in order to sustain people, places, and the planet, and to ensure that we are leaving this earth in a better state for the future generation. Thank you.
Thank you. That was awesome. I think it's always so important to learn from everything that you're saying, because you give us such a different perspective of the industry that we are not used to seeing, because a lot of us are on the media side. So now when you have this legislative piece, right? And you have this piece that's now talking about government entities and it breaks it down just like how you did. It's so important. And I'm so grateful that we're able to mix worlds, right? I'm so grateful that we're able to collaborate to figure out on your end and on our end how we can change the overall travel industry. So thank you so much for your perspective. People are giving you all of the praise as they should, because it was great. And you guys, we will just ask that you guys keep your questions towards the end. I'm going to go through a BTA review, like she said before, give some solutions, then we'll be able to take questions and answers. So I will just start now. As you guys know, the Black Travel Alliance is a professional organization that was created in 2022. We do turn 2 on June 16th. And although we are only 2 years old, it feels like we are 20 years old because of the amount of work that we've done, the amount of hours we've put in, and the amount of campaigns as well as opportunities we've been able to make sure we disperse to Black travel professionals in this space. We are a professional organization to ensure that all of the resources you need as Black travel professionals are there, that they're easy to get to, and that like Ms. Stephanie said, that there is a leveled playing field, because we know prior to 2020, it was not that. Right? It was not that at all. You didn't see Black faces in the spaces that they are now. Prior to 2020, nobody wanted to talk to me and Miss Stephanie. We were knocking down doors. We were calling. We were emailing. We were showing up in places that we might have been the only one, but nobody wanted to speak about it. So we are grateful to be here today, 2 years later, being able to share the stage with Miss Stephanie and Blacks in Travel and Tourism and really create change. For those of you who don't know our stories, we are a group now that just went from 11 to 8, but we started with 18 co-founders. And because of this exact day, Blackout Tuesday, 2 years ago, it sparked our frustration. It sparked our need for action to be able to do something where we held the industry accountable. And I remember it like it was yesterday. We met on a Friday because at the time, one of the founders, Jeffrey Jenkins and Kerwin McKenzie, were doing these brainstorms. And we all gathered into a Zoom link, and we were talking about how frustrated we were. And I remember Xavier, who's also a founder, he said, yeah, so what are we going to do about it? And we're like, well, we're going to do something. And at the time, we had no idea what Black Travel Alliance was going to be. We just knew that we wanted to hit the industry hard, and we knew that we wanted to hold them accountable for posting those Black squares. And for people who don't understand, those Black squares meant something to us for the simple fact that these are brands who never showed us. These are brands who did not employ us. These are brands that when they did employ us, they did not pay us the same amount of money that they might have paid a white male, a white female, an Asian male, an Asian female, a Mexican male. We were always at the bottom. And so it was like the audacity, people have to actually post these Black squares, and these Black squares do not match with what they've been doing before now. And so hence you have the Black Travel Alliance. Our mission, right, is to support Black content creators around the world to increase their representation in the travel industry, including but not limited to employment, conferences, and media. And our vision, we are set up on 3 different pillars. So Alliance, a global community created to strengthen and support each other. Hence the reason we are here right now with Miss Stephanie Jones, or Stephanie Jones. Sorry for the miss. Amplification, our voices matter. And we will continue to support that narrative with awareness campaigns and strategies to ensure members in our network feel seen and heard. And you guys, that is the biggest thing. Are our voices heard? Have we been seen? Are people showing up for us like they say they are? And then accountability. It's like we said, so you posted a Black square, now what? What are you doing in the industry 2 years later? What are you doing 5 years later? What are you doing 20 years from later? Like Ms. Stephanie said, what is the government doing? Where's the legislation going? How are you supporting us in every single aspect of the industry to not only ensure creators, but Black business owners and Black travel professionals are where they need to be to push the industry forward? So, what has our imprint been in the last 2 years? Well, we've been very busy, as most of you guys have seen. But the first thing we came out with was the Pull Up for Travel campaign. It was an incredibly strong and powerful campaign that knocked the travel industry off the chair. Literally, it was a blitz that nobody saw coming, where we decided we were going to call the industry out and ask them, okay, you posted the Black square, but how many Black people do you employ internally? Right? What are your hiring practices? What is the wage gap? And when we did this campaign, it caused people, for one, to realize that, yes, the travel industry really has a problem, even though we've been preaching diversity, equity, and inclusion forever, right? But yes, there's a problem, raising the awareness out of it, and now put these plans into actions on how you're going to change it. The Pull Up for Travel campaign was immensely successful, but it also was ignored by a few brands. And people say, well, why was that? Well, there's two reasons. Some brands were like, because we don't have any Black people, and we don't want people to know that. And other brands almost felt offended that we were calling upon them because nobody had ever done it before. But when I tell you, nothing changes if nothing changes. So it was time for us to do that. One of the ones that I am extremely proud of is our imprint of the history of Black travel timeline. If anybody knows me, even before Black Travel Alliance, and we're talking back in Nomadness Travel Tribe days, back in Black Travel Journey days, making sure that Black travel history is preserved and celebrated on every front, right? It doesn't matter if it's the government. It doesn't matter if it's a location. It doesn't matter if it's the museums. It doesn't matter if it's the DMOs. Making sure that our history is preserved and celebrated was so important to us that we decided to come out with the history of Black travel timeline. Understanding that people get older, people are now passing away, and with them passing away is also our history, because these are the things that aren't spoken about. This is not the history that you learn about in school. This is not the history that's in any history books. This is not the history that you can find in a museum when you go to a destination. This is the history which I call the known unknowns, because yes, the Black travel community might know about it, but the wider travel community does not know about it, and it was not celebrated. So with over 100 entries, we were able to create this amazing body of work that will continue to be contributed to for the rest of our lives, because Black travel history is world history. And now that there's a platform, all of these stories are starting to come back out. Our history is now being interwoven into the destinations, interwoven into the airlines, interwoven into the companies, because it wasn't normally there before. So if you have not gone and visited it yet, it is the history of Black travel timeline.com, and you'll be able to go on there and see everything that we have contributed, from immigration, right, to legislation, to automobiles, to trains, to communities, and been able to see what the real imprint on the world has been because of Black travelers and the Black travel movement, which didn't just start 10 and 15 years ago, which started the first time somebody left Africa, and not only as a slave, but as an explorer, to go find other land. So it goes through all of those things, and it's a way of us to celebrate Black culture within this space. Another thing that we've been able to do is wavelength networking event, which we've had 2 of thus far. The next one will be this October. So for any brands who is on here, please let us know if you're interested in wavelength. But this was the opportunity for the first time for brands to come with Black content creators and do speed networking like we do at other travel conferences, but something that was specific to us. This allowed brands to show up for us and say, we're interested in your narratives, we're interested in your stories, and we're interested in paying you fairly. So they were able to now bring out more Black content creators from our membership and make sure that the way travel in their destination looked, or with their brand looked, was completely different. Because now there was all of these things where you can inject media, right? Now you have Black faces that are going on your page, and not just because it's Blackout Tuesday, right? Now there's an authentic, actual narrative and experience of what I experienced as a Black traveler in Texas, what I experienced as a Black traveler in Oregon. So Wavelength has been immensely successful. And like I said, October is the next one. As you guys know, it is both for brands as well as creators, and we look forward to seeing you there. So the Pull Up for Travel campaign, like I said, immensely important with BTA. Some of the findings that we found was that Black content creators are underrepresented in the travel industry and that there's a great need to address the imbalance. There is, for the most part, lip service, right? Just people saying diversity, equity, and inclusion is important, but never showing it. So it is a way for now allies to really show up, because we all know that allyship is 365 days a year. It's not a light switch. You can't turn it on and turn it off. When you leave your office and go home, you don't stop being an ally. When you close your eyes, you don't stop being an ally. When you're in a room where nobody feels the same way as you don't stop getting to be an ally. Allyship is something that at times is uncomfortable. It will make you lose your job. It will make you lose friends. It will make you not speak to family members anymore, because now you're standing up for what you believe in, but you're standing up for a community because of the lack of representation, right? So that's one of the things that we realized, but we wanted to make sure also that we push for the positive change within the travel industry. And then it allowed us to realize how we need to conduct research moving forward. And I can tell you, our first year, by our first birthday, which was last June, we put out another call to see what brands were doing. And even though there was over 100 brands who participated in the first Pull Up for Travel campaign, Miss Stephanie, would you like to take a wild guess on how many participated in the second one? Throw out any number. 10, not even 10, 3. So how do you go from 100 and something to now 3? So that meant two things to us. One, either people don't care, or two, people have not changed, right? That they just said they were going to change and they have not changed. Now, do we understand that Rome was not built in a day? Absolutely. But it is one thing to say that diversity, equity, and inclusion is important, and it is one thing to do something about it. So we realized that brands were not as far as they thought they were along. And this was a year after Blackout Tuesday. So we'll send back out that email for the Pull Up for Travel campaign again, right? For people to enter in what it is. But all it's going to do is magnify the issue and make people, like you said before, Miss Stephanie, put their money where their mouth is. How are you backing up what you said? How are you hiring that for somebody who's different? How are you now implementing Black stories, and not only Black, but any type of different other travel niche that is underrepresented? So again, the history of Black travel timeline, like you can find it, I always call it the known unknowns. But I said before, it goes through the different categories of our history, and make sure that you visit historyofblacktraveltimeline.com. So, wavelength in a nutshell. The whole point about wavelength was for access. So for the first time, brands had direct access to Black content creators globally at one event. So it wasn't just US based, right? It was UK based. It was Saudi Arabia. It was Oman. It was the Caribbean. So now brands are having access to all these content creators that they kept saying, well, we don't know where to find you guys. Where are you located? And we're like, right here at Wavelength. This is why we created it. There's no excuse anymore. We can't find you guys because, for one, there's Google. But secondly, we're also offering, something for how you guys can find us. But additionally, we want to bring creators from every niche, so including luxury, adventure, budget, and more. Allyships, with brands positioning themselves as allies in the industry, Wavelength allowed them the opportunity for creators and consumers to visibly see how you're positioning yourself as an ally. And then amplification, working with Black content creators to help amplify Black voices and tell Black stories, with Black History Month approaching in February, because at the time it was in November. And travelers wanting to visibly see themselves reflected, what better time than to make this adjustment? So our data and research. Most of you guys know we have been really busy with data and research. Danny is on the call today. And even though Danny is now with the Culturist Group, his own entity, Danny was instrumental in helping us with the Black Traveler Survey. And the reason why this survey and this data was so important was because prior to BTA, these numbers were only coming out every 5 years. Not only were they coming out every 5 years, the numbers were so off. We could tell they were off because we could look around and understand what we were doing as Black travelers, right? So now to be able to be positioned to have a noteworthy entity like MMGY Global set up with us, along with others, to be able to not only conduct this research within the US, but in the UK, in Europe, in Germany, in Canada, and to be able to produce these numbers meant that brands could no longer ignore what Black travelers were doing or what they were spending, because numbers do not lie, right? And you can talk all you want to, but one thing about numbers and dollars, somebody's going to listen to that. So this research was groundbreaking. This research literally set the tone for how brands were going to now interact with Black travelers because of everything that it was saying. It was able to break it down by what we were doing in terms of domestic travel, international travel, what we were doing in terms of where we're staying, who we're traveling with, how much we're spending, what events are getting us out of the house, whether or not we're going in a plane or in a car. And these figures, like I said, have set the tone, but they were also such insight, such great insight into what we're doing as a community. So just some of the stats here, because I love numbers and I love to shout these to the mountaintops. But 129.6 billion, right, is what we spent in 2019. And this is US travelers. But now let's talk about Black travelers in the UK and Ireland, right? They spent 9 billion. Nobody's speaking to them. If you are in the UK alone, we know that you're from the Caribbean or that you're from Africa. So obviously you are traveling to those places. Nobody's speaking to you. British Airways isn't speaking to you. EasyJet isn't speaking to you. Visit Jamaica isn't speaking to you. But why, when you can inject so much into the travel industry? Some of these things that, like other things that I was saying, you can of course try to buy the research on your own, or you can visit our social media where we have some of these stats as well. But when I say it was groundbreaking, it was groundbreaking. Danny was also able to do one for the Latino travel community, which is also groundbreaking. So Danny, as everybody is saying, thank you. And this is what it means, again, to be an ally. And I just want to say, Danny and I met each other before Blackout Tuesday. And Danny was always saying, Marty, what can we do so that we can conduct this research? But at the time, Danny wasn't supported by his own company like he should have been. And it wasn't until something happened like Blackout Tuesday that the industry wanted to be woke, that then they supported things like this. But we always needed a Danny. Because if there wasn't a Danny, when the time was right, we'd have never been able to go through with this and be able to produce such amazing body of work. So Danny, you are the real MVP. Thank you, my friend. What did we do with these results? Well, we sold them. And when we sold them, we raised over $100,000. Then we took $70,000 and injected it back into the Black travel community. Like Stephanie said, I caught myself and I didn't say miss. Like Stephanie said, you have to be able to show up through money. So if we say we want Black travel creators to be the best they can be and have the best resources they can have in this industry so that their careers can elevate, we have to be able to back it up with dollars. And we were able to do that. We administered $5,000 grants that went to over 20 either single creators or also Black travel organizations. The first time something like that has happened in the industry. So we didn't necessarily take any of it for ourselves. We injected it back into our membership. You had to apply. We injected it back into our membership. Excuse me. To make sure that creators had what they needed. So it was extremely, extremely important. Something that we are so proud of still to this day. Who is in the BTA? Well, the BTA represents 54 countries, right? It must have skipped. Sorry. So the BTA right now has over 2,500 members, a number, again, that we are extremely proud of. The breakdown: 32% is Black creators, 20% are Black travelers or supporters, 10% are Black travel agents, then 7% travel businesses, 7% non-Black travel creators, and then 24% makes up the other. And this is travel PR companies, non-Black supporters, DMOs and tourism boards, media, HR professionals, and others. We are always looking to welcome people in back or into the alliance, but not only that, continue to build an organization that really shows up for our community. Because if we don't do it, I don't know who will. And that is the God, like honest to God truth. We must put on for ourselves. So we are constantly working hard to continue to bring opportunities, to continue to bring resource, and to continue to make connections. Where are we? Like I said before, we are across 54 countries. This is a really big and important fact because we're not only US based, we're not only UK based, we're in Taiwan, we're in Saudi Arabia. Like I said before, we're in Oman, we're in Montserrat, we're in Martinique, we're in Central and South America. We're throughout Africa. And that being said, this is an opportunity now for brands to tap into the membership to give those creators who you don't normally see the opportunity to create now things from their perspective. My perspective as an African American woman is not the same perspective that a Black British woman would have. We are from two different places. Yes, we are both Black, but our Black experiences are different. But how can you know if you don't tap in? The other thing that we always love to share is that Black travel is not a monolith. Within the BTA, our members represent 52 travel niches. Some of these include luxury, because Black people are spending, as you can see, 129.6 billion. Birding, we're outdoors too. Property tourism, and I don't know if Devon is in here right now, but Devon was also one of our recipients of that grant, and she teaches Black people how to purchase hotels. So property tourism, art tourism, military tourism, battlefield tourism, wedding tourism, Gen Z tourism, responsible tourism, agritourism, and that is just some of the 52 travel niches that we represent. So never think for a second that if you are a brand or a DMO, that there's not somebody in our membership that can cover what you need them to cover. We like all things, right? We show up in all spaces and places, and we are extremely proud of that as well. So some of the events that we've ran throughout the past 2 years, we had something called Beyond the Gram, where we were trying to make sure that if you're a journalist, excuse me, or a blogger, that you knew what you needed to do for SEO purposes. We teamed up with brands like Mediavine. We also did something called It's Getting Real, where we have an existing partnership with Meta, aka Facebook, or also known as what was Facebook. We just did something recently on how to get featured on TV. Our tech teams would do tech team lives to make sure that your website was up to date, to make sure that you understood how to backlink, to make sure you have the support you need as creators to be the best in the industry that you can be. Something that's coming up soon will be how to pitch to Condé Nast, because we want to make sure that our stories are heard in publications as well, where Condé Nast will come on and tell you exactly what they want to hear when you're pitching these stories to them. The things that we did for creators and brands, like we mentioned before, was Wavelength. The next one is in October. And then for brands, last February, we did how to properly prepare for Black History Month. Now, this is something that we're giving brands as a courtesy because, truth be told, brands should be researching these things also on their own. But we will continue to show up and show out in this space to ensure that if you are a Black travel creator or professional, you have what you need. So some of the factors to consider, and Miss Stephanie and I will now go through these things together and then open it up for question and answer. We won't take a long time, but under consulting, we have the industry needs to hire Black consultants to be able to speak to a Black narrative. If I'm your consultant and I don't look like me, how do you expect to get me to come, right? And we started seeing this happen in so many different instances. Brands would they would put in a Black experience, but they would hire a company that did not look like us to then tell them what they should do. that company cannot relate to me
Yeah.
because they don't look like me. So this is really, really important. Training, brands need to undergo diversity training. Hiring, the industry needs to create ways to reach a different audience when fulfilling positions. Suppliers, destinations, and DMOs need to include suppliers from different cultures to add to their destination experience, like Ms. Stephanie showed before. Advisory boards are critical for success in data and research. So now we'll go into it a little bit. One project that Black Travel Alliance worked on through the help of Danny again and MMGY Global was with Destination Cleveland, where we partner with them as consultants to create a racial equity survey for not only the people of Cleveland, but for the business owners of Cleveland, because they were trying to understand how to change their destination, not only to be more desirable from people from the outside coming in, but realize your destination is who's in your destination. That's what's bringing me, an outsider, to want to come in. So now they had to create this roundtable and this forum to be able to help bridge the gap between their business owners and themselves. Now, how can they do this when they've never reached out to these people before? Well, they came to Black Travel Alliance, asked us to be consultants, and then we were able to offer up solutions, right, and suggestions as what they can do to move forward as a destination. Not only that, this past January, they brought me into their planning meeting so I can be able to talk about the research, but even more so that I can meet with their advisory boards so that we can figure out solutions. So it didn't just stop with the consulting. They made sure to continue the relationship. Ms. Stephanie, are there any other examples that you can think of in terms of consulting and research?
Absolutely. In 2020, we were uh, contacted by the CEO of Visit Lauderdale, who we've had, a long-standing relationship with and have done some projects with. But, just like Visit Lauderdale, several destinations felt that they needed to respond to the George Floyd murder, that they needed to, put some, issue in a statement, but just really not knowing what to do. So we came on board and we worked very closely with the CEO and their VP of marketing, to develop, a statement, but also we did some research for them to really help them understand the traveler sentiment as relates specifically to their destination, the Black traveler sentiment. And so, from that, we were able to provide them data so that they would know, specifically, what are the interests of Black travelers who are coming to their destination? How long do they stay? Who do they travel with? A lot of the same things that you mentioned. But I think it's so important for destinations to, yes, it's great to have the larger, research, but destinations also need to know what are the sentiments and attitudes about their specific destination so that they can really then drive down in their marketing strategy to come up with tactics to address what the interest and the needs of travelers that they would like to have come to their destination, and also to help their partners become to really help their partners become better positioned to welcome
Right.
diverse travelers into the destination, because as the DMO, they're really leading by example. And for their partners are following them. And so they have the responsibility to make certain that not only within the DMO, but all of their partners understand the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion. That they understand what are the sentiments of about for Black travelers who are coming to destinations, because we know that Black
Right.
travelers have poor and really negative some experiences traveling around the world. I've
Right.
had bad experiences even in hotels in Fort Lauderdale because of the color of my skin. So it's important, again, that DMOs not only work within the organizations, but they really, connect externally with their partners to bring their partners along with them and to help them get on the same page with what's the standard for marketing to and managing when various types of tourists come to the destination. So we've had a great partnership with Visit Lauderdale.
Awesome. And
Mhm.
just two things before we move on to the other one. I want to make sure brands know Visit Cleveland came correct. It wasn't a, hey, we want to pick your brain. It was, we have this budget to be able to support you supporting us because we need your input. We
Yeah.
value your voice and we want to move forward in the correct way because we recognize that there is an issue here and we
Mhm.
want to be better. So please understand there is no such thing as picking my brain. If you pick my brain, if you pick Miss Stephanie's brain, that's called consulting. That's going to run you some money, right? Because you wouldn't do that with anybody else. So
Yeah.
treat us with the same respect when you're reaching out to our communities and understand that you will have to pay to get that type of knowledge, because if you had it on your own you wouldn't need us, right? I say that as humbly as I can also.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that I want to make sure brands know is before you go to consultants, ask the people who work for you. This
Yeah.
was an issue we found with Destination Cleveland. There was a young lady in there by the name of Chardonnay, and she was fuming, and I had to zoom her on the side. I said, girl, what's going on? Because I see it in your face. She said, they brought you in, somebody who's never been to Cleveland, to talk to you about how to change Cleveland. I've worked for them
Mm-hmm.
for all of these years. I've lived this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the one who spoke out about this before it was a popular thing to do. So I had to go back to them and say, start internally,
Yeah.
right? See what you can do internally from your, employees and how you can change, because more than likely they have such a different lens because they know what's happening versus what you're showing me as a consultant.
That's a great point.
So the next thing is training. And Miss Stephanie, I'll let you speak to this because BTT offers trainings. And like you said, you're getting ready to put in the academy. So you want to talk about different things that people can do when they want to have diversity training through Blacks in Travel and Tourism.
Absolutely. Well, this is actually the course objectives from the DEI Deep Dive Masterclass program that we provide through the Diversity Tourism Academy. It's a three-course online course on demand that you can take at your leisure, but it really provides that personal, self-reflective journey that I believe each person needs to take. And I say to DMOs or companies that reach out to say, well, we want to do something for all of our employees. I always make the statement that keep in mind that not every employee is on the same page or feels the same about DEI based on their own beliefs and backgrounds. So you'll probably get resistance if you're trying to drag people along, and to get on board with your DEI efforts. So the course, the DEI deep dive, again, was specifically based on conversations that I had with CMOs, whether it was a county or a government funded, and where employees felt that if they were to take a survey, then all of their responses were going to be made public because it's a publicly funded organization. And so we had to create a safe space for individuals within the company to be
Yes.
able to take this DEI journey to really understand what it is and how it impacts them personally, but how does it impact them in the workplace? And how does it impact when they lead others and when they lead themselves? And so, we've gotten a lot of great feedback from the DMOs or companies that have enrolled their employees, because after, each employee has completed taking the DEI deep dive class on their own, then we offer continual engagement through our common ground conversations, which are then group settings. We bring people in a group setting, but it's still a safe place because employees don't have to put their name on their photo. They don't have to turn on their camera, and they can still pose questions anonymously if they have questions about what they went through the DEI deep dive, or if they have
Gotcha.
questions about what's going on internally within their organization. So we have a really great team of DEI consultants, that are available to do organizational assessments, and again to just customize whatever that DEI continuation and journey needs to look like for the DEI, for the DMO or the corporation.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is hiring. So of course you see me here. But the reason you see me here is because just like Blacks in Travel and Tourism, Black Travel Alliance has a job board, which tons of jobs are submitted on a weekly basis. I specifically wanted to talk about the company that I work for, which is NYC and Company, because after, you know, June 2020, they made sure to do the work in terms of getting people on the team who were diverse, even though there was already a diverse staff, but who can speak to diverse narratives. So, if some of you guys might know Rondell Holder, he runs Soul Society. He used to be a marketing director over at Essence, and now he's a vice president of multicultural content. NYC Go specifically put in Rondell's position. It didn't used to be there. They created that position because they understood that there was a hole, there was something missing, there was a void when it came to the type of content they were producing. So now Rondell's sole function is to create cultural content that speaks to the big apple that's a melting pot. Can you imagine a place that's a melting pot that shows no diverse content? Well, now it does, right? So they created the space, and it's something that brands should be doing, getting that specific, salary and setting it to the side for somebody, because you don't necessarily need a consultant when you can hire somebody to do this year round. Then my job went on the BTA website because they were looking for an influencer manager. I can tell y'all it was not a job that I thought I was going to take. It's not even a job that I wanted. I was bamboozled into getting it. But to make a long story short, right, these job boards are very, very effective. I'm not the only person in the BTA who's been on an interview through a job board posting and been hired. Our percentage rate right now is about at 27% of people who apply actually get hired. And right now that's good. That's a quarter, right? And sometimes just people don't have necessarily the background they need, but people can do positions and you don't know until you put it out there. So how can you say I want to change internally when these opportunities are not in front of a diverse market? Another brand who is doing this from the actual university standpoint is Royal Caribbean. They're now specifically looking for engineers, right? Business people, and hospitality people straight from HBCUs. This is immensely important because, as I tell people all the time, there are 13 HBCUs that have a travel and tourism program. And when those students leave, they barely do anything in their industry because opportunities are not given to them like they're given to people at Cornell's hospitality and tourism program, right?
Yeah.
Even though it's the same curriculum. So these are things that are really, really important. Ms. Evans, is there anything you want to add to this?
I do. Again, we have our Black Tourism Talent Directory that launched last year to become a matchmaking tool for the industry to match with Black talent. It's free for Black talent to create a profile. And then for partners, whether it's a brand, or DMO, you can also post positions. And then we actually take it a step further and vet candidates to try to match them with the opportunities. I'm really excited that we're now working in partnership with Miles Partnership. And they're actually going to be redeveloping and redesigning the Black Tourism Talent Directory so that people can search by algorithm to be matched with potential candidates and with job positions. And then there'll be more interactive training opportunities through the platform as well. So I'm excited that we're going to get a new look, but we're really working to position the Black Tourism Talent Directory as a workforce development tool for the industry that's looking to hire and for Black talent that's looking to be connected with industry opportunities.
Yes. And I just want to even point that out. Miles Partnership might not have done that if Melissa was not in that position. So again, this is, making sure you have the right talent to be able to expand, whatever your corporation or your business wants to do and to reach those goals that you set in terms of DE&I. Additionally, so this one is about suppliers. I chose to magnify Black Richmond, Virginia, as well as Virginia state tourism in general. As you guys know, well, some of you might know, but Richmond, Virginia has a separate entity that's called Black RVA, where now you go into that specific location and you can now see the Black experience. They have budget that is specifically for that entity, and it has been immensely successful because they've been able to find people to dedicate to be able to think about this space and what they're trying to create. They've done the research and they are backed up with funding to make sure that they are success. Additionally, some of you might have seen the passport holders or even the sweatshirt that I always have on that says Black Travel is Essential. And this was a collaboration between Virginia's for Lovers of Virginia State Tourism, along with a Black-owned brand called Humble Hustle. So these are just some of the ways that DMOs can work with different type of suppliers to create a product or specifically pay homage to a certain community if that's the majority of your destination. Ms. Stephanie, I'm sure you have other examples.
Yeah, because pretty much most of our effort is around leveling the playing field with Black businesses, suppliers, especially with our Black Cultural Heritage Tours collection. We're partnering with Black suppliers throughout the Southeast region now on these itineraries with the intent to bring consistent tourist revenue and foot traffic to them. And our goal is to build out these itineraries around across the country. But it creates an opportunity, and we have partnered with several DMOs throughout the Southeast region who host our team when we come in to meet and assess the businesses that we're going to be partnering with. But again, it's just a really great opportunity for Black businesses to get to know and understand their DMO and how to tap into resources, but also for DMOs, again, to be connected with Black businesses so that they know when beyond tours, if they need a photographer or a videographer. And again, you can find these folks on the Black Tourism Talent, blacktourismtalent.com as well. We're still aggregating Black talent to create free profiles. So again, when you're searching in any destination around the world, you'll be able to identify a Black business that you can contract with, for meetings and events, for your marketing collateral. So again, there are so many opportunities for DMOs and brands to really get behind and support Black businesses, because there are a lot of very talented professional business owners already out there just looking for the opportunity, to be able to do business in this industry.
Perfect. Thank you. And then the last thing I think we have is advisory boards. And of course, you might see two familiar faces in this photo because it is a board that Miss Stephanie and I both sit on. And it is Hertogrutzen Cruise Companies and or cruise lines, excuse me. And if any of you guys know Anders Lindstrom, he came from JetBlue, then he went to Norwegian, and now he's at Hertogrutzen. I always call, Anders, I always say he's such an MVP because no matter what brand he has been at, he has always advocated for the Black travel space. So if you can imagine now, you have this Swedish gay white male who is advocating for African Americans in a very Nordic and German space where they've never seen people like us. And he gets them to not only put their money where their mouth is because they donated funds to both our organizations, they invited us then to come on a trip to Antarctica, which is a place that people think Black people don't go, but they've been going and they've been documented since 1950s. And now he changed the way not only Black travelers look at Antarctica, but how other travelers who are on a ship with Black travelers in Antarctica view Black travelers, how the cruise staff viewed Black travelers. And it really, really provided some amazing insight. And now we sit on the board with about 4 others, and we have been able to do so much in such a little time just by being there. I don't know if you want to expand on it anymore, but the power of having an advisory board and having somebody who is Black on there is completely, I don't want to say life-changing, but brand-changing. Not only do I sit on the board at Hertigan, I sit on the board for Condé Nast because I want to make sure I'm advocating for our stories being told by us, right? And stories for us in those type of publications. I also sit on the board for the National Outdoor Leadership School because this is now Black people in the outdoors because we're out here too. Miss Stephanie, what other boards do you sit on?
Oh, okay. Well, I before I
She's like, there's so many.
one of the things I wanted to say, about Black Travel Advisory Boards, it sends a signal to the industry when corporations invest the time and resources to create a Black Travel Advisory Board, because it says to the industry, we're in this for the long term. We recognize that DEI doesn't happen overnight. And so we're willing to bring experts to the table to help us navigate in this space within our organization, but also externally. So it says a lot when a brand is willing to create a Black Travel Advisory Board, because the first thing I said to Anders when he reached out to me to join, I said to him, so is this just for 1 year? Then what's going to happen?
Yep.
Because I wasn't interested in just being on the board for 1 year, because I know that there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and it's not going to happen in 1 year. So not only is Hertigan, really leading in this effort, the North Star Travel Group, I serve on their Black Travel Advisory Board, has really leaned in, and they have done so much over 2 years to reflect representation and diversity in all of their publications and their events. I serve on the advisory board for the World Cultural Heritage and Tourism Association. I serve on the advisory board for the Future of Travel Coalition, Future of Tourism Coalition, and I'm probably forgetting something.
Because you're fire. That's why. Because your voice is needed. That's why.
Our
That
voices,
is why.
yeah, and more. Because again, as I always say to you, look, I'm not trying to do this work for the rest of my life. I want to retire in 5 years. So, we're going to be doing some things together to help prepare the next generation. And it may not be the next generation, just the next group of Black leaders to be able to either join the tables we're sitting at, or to come and fill our spots, so that there remains representation in all of these national and global settings. So you'll hear a lot more about how we're going to be collaborating more with BTA, as well as some other Black travel and tourism associations and groups. So a lot of great things, collaborative things, are going to be coming in the as we develop this Black travel and tourism ecosystem.
Absolutely. And so now we'll open up the floor for questions and answers. You guys, we have kept you so long, so I am going to limit it to 15 minutes. However, this platform will still be on until about 3:30 your time. So you can still stay and mingle. If there are any questions that we didn't answer, please feel free to reach out to us. Stephanie, can you just give your email below? And Nadine, can you type it in for us? Or she can type it in. Sorry, I forget that we can type, but we're ready for questions. So Nadine, if you can either feed them to us in the chat, that would be awesome. Or if anybody wants to just post a question there, that would be awesome.
We talked about a lot, didn't we?
We did. We covered a lot. And I just want to thank everybody who has stuck around to hear it all, because I know there was a lot there to be covered. Hopefully you guys were able to get some really, really good insights on what's been happening the past 2 years and what needs to continue to happen to move forward. All right, first questions. What steps and/or actions are being taken to ensure inclusion within the Black travel industry, supporting Black, queer, trans, or even disabled travelers? Awesome question. Do you want me to take it, or you want to take it?
You can start and I'll add.
Okay, yeah, specifically because of course this month is Pride. I'm always very hesitant because I'm like, just like for February, this is not the only month that you should be celebrated for being who you are, right?
Yeah.
So specifically for me, within this space, I always advocate for Black travelers from all niches. And I know we even say DE and I, but we always leave out the A in that because now accessibility also is something. We do have Black travel content creators who are deaf, who are in a wheelchair, who are amputees, who are doing phenomenal work. So we try to make sure we get them the same exact opportunities we give somebody else, because their narrative, to be truth, like to truth be told, is so important, because we know travelers don't look one way. We know Black travelers don't look one way. So we are definitely advocating in that space.
Awesome.
Anything you want to
Well,
add?
since you know, that was a great response. So I'll go to the next question. What are your plans on international collaboration with Black heritage tour operators? Funny you should ask, whoever.
That's Nadine or whoever, I guess. Yeah.
But we have been in the planning, or at least having conversations really for the past year, because we've had so many Black tour operators from throughout Africa, the Caribbean, that have reached out to partner with us and have even joined our network. And so we do plan to launch an outbound program within the next 2 years. I'm having meetings, with various tour operators now. And as a matter of fact, I'll be spending the entire month of December in Africa. We're doing our cruise, but I extended my stay so that I can visit parts of the continent and meet with some tour operators and some tourism boards to explore potential collaboration as we look to start to build out an outbound program, hopefully within the next 2 years.
Awesome.
Mhm.
A few people asked how you can access that list. We will put it on the site. We did talk about it last week briefly. Because like we said, there are 52 different niches that are within our space. So we will make sure we get that information to people in general that can be found on our website. Were there any questions that we missed? Or any more questions before we let you guys go? Thank you so much for tuning in, Miss Stephanie Jones.
It's
Any
okay.
last words for the people? Any last
Well,
words?
we have accomplished, our organizations, with our dynamic teams, have accomplished a lot. And shout out to Kelly, who I see, and Tammy, who has worked with us, and Amit, I don't know if you're on, but shout out to my team, because they work effortlessly to, really try to make a difference for our Black supplier partners. There's a lot of work that still needs to be done. And so we're always open to collaboration, because again, we can only do so much by ourselves. And this is just not advancing Blacks in travel and tourism. It's just not a BTT priority. It's everyone's priority, to help sustain the work of organizations such as BTT and BTA and others that do this work day in and day out. It requires resources to sustain it. And so I just want to mention that we just launched a membership program yesterday. So feel free to go over to
Congratulations.
blacksandtourism.org. Thank you. And we would love for you to become a member and to get connected and involved in the work that we're doing. And again, we'll be creating other opportunities for people to work with us and partner. And as I mentioned, we're looking forward to continuing to collaborate with BTA and others in this space, because the work must continue. And I thank you all for taking the time to engage with us. And thank you so much, Marty, for, inviting, BTT to be a part of this conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you for being a part of this conversation and really changing our perspective and a part of this industry that we don't necessarily deal with, but that is so important to our narrative and us being funded. So, to all those people, as you can see, blacksintourism.org, blacktravelalliance.org, please make sure to visit our websites. If you have those job postings, I saw them going crazy. Please make sure to send them to us. Please make sure you follow us across all social medias, because we are both on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And thank you all so much for coming out. If you know somebody missed this and they want to see it and they did sign up, there will be an email that goes out automatically to anybody who was here today, who also needs to see this playback, but it will be up on YouTube by next week for you to share this information with somebody.
Yeah.
How you can be an ally is sharing this information with somebody and advocating about what you heard here today and implementing into your strategies and your daily lives. So without further ado, please, you guys, keep in touch with us, and please know you can stay around and chat in the chat outside of this broadcast. But thank you so much